Thank you everybody for joining us for the latter half of today, our Sales and Marketing Summit. Today we are going to be discussing the really just market trends and sales best practices that includes platforms, resources, all these tools we have at our fingertips, and what's working for our members, what's not. And of course, I mean, nothing's off limits. We definitely want to hear your feedback, your questions. We want to talk about what's working with each of our members that are here today. There's all sorts of different resources and experts emailing each of us, I think, probably a few times a day with leads they want to sell, all that good stuff. We want to really dive in on what's working, what's not, and really best practices. With that, I want to go ahead and introduce our panel. Seth, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me up here. Seth Burney, Director of Strategic Initiatives and Planning with Optic Networks, formerly known as Nebraska Link. That's an entirely new brand thing that we're going to be talking about in the next few years. You'll see more coming. But I head up the marketing department as well as the pricing team at Optic Networks, and then I focus on strategic initiatives that will help further the growth of the organization, whether that be through fiber development, last mile partner initiatives, or large RFPs.
Is that all, Seth?
That's it.
Awesome. Britton?
Hi, Britton Watson with Iris Networks. I'm Director of Marketing. I've been with Iris for about 18 months. In addition to rebranding Iris this past year, we've also been creating a lot of new collateral materials. We have come on really strong in some social areas, and I also do some project management with some software applications like Salesforce and ConnectBase, which you heard just a little bit about earlier this morning.
Last but not least.
Okay. Hi, I'm Britlin Falder. I'm the marketing manager for CNI and Independence Fiber Network. I've been with both companies for about 2 years now, closing in on 2 years. And overall, I think throughout the past 2 years that I've been here, there's been a shift to our marketing and the way that we are marketing as a company. And we're trying to be a little bit more strategic to our initiatives and what we want to do.
Excellent. Now, did you mention that third company that you're helping as well?
Oh, and I'm also the marketing chair for HoosierNet.
Excellent. No small task.
Yeah.
Thank you. To each of our panelists ahead of time, I just want to thank you in advance for your time today. I think we all have a lot we can learn, a lot of different perspectives on stage here, and so I'm excited to dive in if you guys are ready.
Let's do it.
Excellent. Well, Brittlin, I'm actually going to ask you a question first, if that works for you.
Okay, yep.
Excellent. Well, you and I go back and forth quite a bit on LinkedIn, text, phone, all that good stuff of just what's working. There's so many different social media platforms out there, right? Yep. And every member has different objectives, whether you're focused on residential, commercial, enterprise, all that good stuff. So there's certain social channels that work, certain platforms that work better for those social channels you're utilizing. Can you tell me a little bit about what you're working with, for what resources you're working with for all three of those companies you're helping out?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is you can't be everything for everyone. You can't, if your customer base or target audience isn't on Instagram, your company shouldn't be on Instagram. There's no reason for it. It really depends. If you are reaching out to those residential customers, then maybe that is your platform that you need to be on. But like I said, we're really looking into being strategic. So Independence Fiber Network, CNI are currently on Facebook, and we do that for employee engagement more than we are looking for leads through Facebook. We're on LinkedIn, and then we're also on Twitter at the moment.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite out of those three?
LinkedIn. We're really heavy on our enterprise side, so anything B2B for Independence Fiber Network, LinkedIn's where we're finding those leads.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy to say Inditel can say just about the same.
Yeah.
It's my personal favorite. A lot less spam, too, compared to Facebook and Twitter and all that good stuff. Excellent. Well, I'm guessing you run into similar issues I do when you're running multiple social channels for one company. If you want to go in and post everything one by one, is that how you run it, or do you do something different?
So right now we currently use Hootsuite. The nice thing about the plan, I guess, that we have, we're able to do both companies, so CNI and Independence Fiber Network, on one plan instead of having to pay for two different plans for two different companies. So on there I can post to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, have it all scheduled out for the month or months to come, as you should be planning out your marketing calendar.
I like that comment. Why do you think that?
For what, the planning now? I think when we do initiatives, sometimes when people are making social posts, they're like, oh, I just need to post this on social media now. Well, sometimes it could be a late thought, oh, I should have posted that on social media, where it really should be a planned out, like if you're going to this, to End to Tell, or you're going to a future show, you really need people to know ahead of time and not the day before the show, the day of the show.
Excellent. Thank you. Either of you two have anything to add to that?
No, I think that was good.
Excellent. All right, well, Britton, I'm going to toss it over to you next if that works for you. Wonderful. Well, let's talk about the pros and cons of third-party marketing firms versus having an in-house marketing team, whether that's one person, 5, 10, depending on the size of the company. What do you guys do at Iris?
We actually have a little bit of both. Iris had an outside marketing firm for a number of years, but did not have an internal contact, and I was hired as that internal contact. I actually owned my own marketing firm for about 20 years and had a staff of 16 people. So I know what it's like to be on the other side. And it really does, if you're going to outsource your marketing, it's very important that you do have a kind of a single point of contact that's making sure that the trains are running, that the messages are staying the same. That the branding that is out there is very consistent, because you've got so many people internally, sales, with your sales team. Most of them are going to have some really great ideas, but trying to keep everybody kind of in line, focused on what the goals are, it's a really big part of the marketing. But third-party marketing companies definitely have their place, especially when like at Iris, I'm a marketing department of one. There's no way that I can do everything and do it successfully. So having the resources to be able to send that out. And I'm actually working with about 3 different companies that specialize in their own area. Now, you can find third-party sources that, will provide all of those. I came from a background where I was used to juggling and managing a lot of independent contractors on top of the staff, so I don't find that to be a challenge. Others do. They just want to have one person that they can reach out to with their marketing source and just say, hey, do this for me, and that's great. You really kind of need to figure out what works best for you. But some of the sources that we're working with, we have a company that's just helping us handle web development, and they're also working with our SEO. But I have another freelance person that is doing our social posts. You were talking about Hootsuite. We actually are using Buffer for that same reason, because we can schedule things out ahead of time. We're able to let our internal people know what those posts are going to be so that they can have some input. And we're also prepared to be able to provide some last minute. One of the things that is kind of a misconception is if you do hire a third-party marketer, that they'll kind of be able to be very reacting or flexible, and you don't get that same kind of flexibility that you can when you have somebody in-house. So you need to really understand what your needs are, what goals that you have set, what the expectations are, and as Brent and Lynn will, I'm sure, agree, with a third party, they actually still need content. They can't just fabricate information to try to keep you out there. So it's very important that you're feeding them the content and that they know what your goals and objectives are, so that they can be very timely and very on point with the messaging that you want to put out to your publics.
That's excellent. So you mentioned you're managing 3 different third-party marketing companies or experts in that field. Those of us that maybe aren't the best at juggling and herding cats in that way. Any tips?
I think I'm really good at multitasking, and I kind of like the chaos just a little bit. The other third party, which is, I told you we had, a web developer. We also have the social. The other that we have partnered with is Sienna has marketing partner. So managing platforms and email drip campaigns and some things directly with them, and they've come up with some creative. But making sure that all three of those entities, that the content, the messaging, they all provide content for us at different, for different entities, but making sure that that is, kind of a thread across each of those platforms is important. But, I don't know that there's really any magic to that. I think it just depends on the person that's in charge of it and what works best for your company and with their skill set.
Oh, that makes perfect sense. Thank you. Well, the question I've been thinking about quite a bit. I mean, we use a third-party marketing organization here at Indatel, and I mean, it's a long-standing relationship and very appreciative of it. However, they are involved with several different types of industries. The three that you use, do they specialize in telecom, or do they have other industries they work in?
Obviously, Sienna, yes. That's a given. The web development company that we're working with, they actually had several telecom customers already, so they were familiar with the industry and kind of our language. The social person that we hired is actually a young lady that worked for me several years ago, and she's just fabulous. And she's a very strong writer and a researcher. So bringing her on was just kind of she and I worked really well together. She knew kind of the expectations and the turnaround and some of the unreasonable deadlines that I will sometimes set, especially when it comes to marketing. As much as you want to try to plan ahead, there are things that are going on last minute at the company. And you want to be able to have somebody that can be reactionary when you need it, as long as you're not creating a 911 every day for them. But you want to have, things that are out there and that are timely, so.
Yeah, oh, excellent. Love to hear it. Well, we've talked a lot about different channels, resources, and techniques. Seth, what are you guys doing at Optic to measure how successful those types of things are?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at Optic Networks right now, we've really put together kind of a simple campaign ROI tracking calendar with Salesforce. So what we did is, because we don't have a big team right now, and because we don't have a lot of unique campaigns running simultaneously, we've really just utilized Salesforce from the sales engine and put parameters in place to track campaigns, and then make sure we can run reports at the end of the week or at the end of the month to see which campaigns actually yielded what revenues from that. The curious thing when you're talking about analytics, campaigns, tracking return on investment, in the marketing world, it is getting more and more difficult to actually put a dollar spent to a dollar earned. There's a lot going on out there. One thing I would say, when everyone is looking at tracking a return on investment, I think you need to put together, and both of you mentioned putting a plan in place, right? I think you need to have a plan. You need to create a campaign set and have that plan of action of, this is what we're going to do, whether it be pay-per-click advertisements, retargeting campaigns, mailers, postcards, whatever that be. Put a dollar figure to it and really make sure that your team, your marketing team, or your sales team is tracking those different pieces in place. But at the end of it, you almost have to look at the entire customer journey, right? Someone might find you through an advertisement that you put on Google for dedicated internet access. If someone finds that, there's a high likelihood that they could convert on the web page, on the lead form, to get into Salesforce to start that tracking. But they might interact with your brand 5, 10, 15 times throughout the life cycle of different campaigns, right? It might be that first ad, then they leave, then they see you guys on Instagram because you have a retargeting ad on Instagram that's following them through Facebook. So they see your ad there, and that's building brand recognition and trust. Then later on, they decide, hey, you know what? I'm going to go and do another Google search for a different type of product that's still in our ecosystem, and they find another landing page within. Maybe they leave and they find a newsletter from you guys, right? But at the end of the day, I think you need to know how the lead came in, track that as your main campaign metric, but then you also need to know what that attribution method was. What was the thing that they actually bought from? What was that last interaction? So when you look at the customer journey and they touch 6, 7 points, what was that one that actually got them to convert? And sometimes it's just the sales rep, right, calling them and following up with them and doing their due diligence. But I think that that's important to track. But I think when you look at both of those, you need to be able to track that ROI as a totality, right? So it gets very simple for us to sometimes say, well, we put $1,500 into this and we didn't get a single return on investment. We didn't get anybody who purchased from that. Well, no, but if you look back at the analytics, how many people actually interacted with that? And by interacting with that, it built trust, and that helped your other campaigns succeed. So I think from a Salesforce perspective, we have a very simple ROI metric put in place for us to be able to run those reports. But there are very complex analytical systems that you can also use. I know HubSpot has a full sales funnel lifecycle that you can create and track those metrics with. Marketo has a similar product. Marketing 360 has a great, if you want a pretty inexpensive, jump in, try it out, throw it into your website, throw in all your analytics in, and really see that customer journey of how many times they've worked with or seen your brand. Those are all good options for you guys to look at.
Thank you, Seth. I mean, you touched on quite a few and mentioned you guys currently leverage Salesforce.
Yep.
Was there something before Salesforce within Optic to measure this, or was that really how that started?
I would probably say Excel spreadsheets.
Our favorite. Excellent.
I'd like to add something.
Absolutely.
In addition, the ROI, one of the things I always say is you want to start with the end in mind. What is it that you really want that campaign to do? What are your expectations? So sometimes when you can't necessarily measure it, as Seth said, in dollars, what did you want? If you're doing an email drip campaign and you're going to send it out to 1,000 people, what do you want them to do? What is the objective? Do you want to drive them to the website? And if so, what percentage is going to make you happy if you got them there? Do you want them to pick the phone up and call you? If so, how many calls do you need inbound to make you feel like that campaign was worthwhile? If you've got an appointment setter, how many appointments do you expect to get? So it's really important that the whole team understand what success looks like. Not necessarily in a monetary, but obviously monetary is what pays all of our paychecks. But once you know what that driving factor is, hopefully you're also tracking some other things. How many phone calls does it take, or how many hits on your website does it take to turn that particular thing into a sale? Where you can vet that, qualify it, and what is that lead time? So looking at all of those things, are really important, not just the monetary part, but all the steps that kind of get you there. So.
Yes, they wonderfully said, and you knew I was going to call on you next anyway.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add there, because I think this is very important, and I think sometimes it's missed, and Seth really touched on this. I mean, it's all about the touches that you have with that consumer. I've seen anywhere from 7 touches to 13 touches. And just like he said it helps other campaigns succeed. So maybe you're not seeing it in that campaign, but it's helping your next campaign, because that next time they saw your name pop up, they're like, you know what, I'm going with that company. So you really have to focus on getting those touches and working with the sales team to know, hey, this is where you guys need to be and this is where I'm at. I'll meet you there.
Also, understanding, if it's, cold leads or warm leads or hot leads, what is that message? And, somebody that we've got 2 sides. We have our wholesale side, which, we don't have as many touches that are going to, make somebody pick the phone up and make that call, because they already know who we are. They know that we're a trusted and we're a very branded entity, with 25 years of experience. We don't have that same experience on the enterprise side because we're new in a market. And so that socialization of just being out there, it takes much longer and a lot more touches in order for somebody to become familiar. And not only become familiar, but then to go, okay, well, now I'm familiar, but do I even trust this company? Do I believe what they're saying? Is this hype? So it's very much a process, and it's not a one-size-fits-all depending on exactly what it is that you're selling and to whom you're selling it.
Very well put. Well, you touched on wholesale and enterprise, but I think we've got a couple of people in here. You guys also market to residential, correct? No? Never mind. Scratch that. Well, I'm going to lob this question to you, but we can decline and move on if you guys would like. But if you're going to put, I mean, we have people that are marketing to residential in this room, right? Raise your hands. I knew we had at least one.
Got 1, 2.
Yeah.
So,
There we go. We got 2. Would your approach be different on expectations when setting benchmarks that measure success on these campaigns for residential versus these other channels? Or would you just say it's the same across the board?
I would have to think that it would be a little different the way you're approaching different things, the way you're putting out your campaigns. Those benchmarks are going to be a little different because right now, I mean, a lot of residential, depending on your area, I mean, internet access is something that they need. So it's almost a need instead of a want anymore, to where I think that you're probably going to have more hits, but you might have also competition in those areas. So you really would have to adjust the way it would look.
Very, very true. Now, I apologize to my panelists right now. This is a question that I did not put on our agenda when we've had our conversations about this pre-planning. But one of you mentioned that trust that you need to build to increase that conversion rate with all those different touches with your prospects. Can you each of you, walk me through what your brand does to build that trust with a brand new prospect?
Go ahead.
So I think, again, marketing and sales go hand in hand. It's all about the campaign that you're putting in with those leads. So the trust starts with just brand awareness. They start to learn your brand, start to research your brand. But then I really believe that it also comes with a face too, when you have a salesperson truly calling out to them, visiting them. We're really big in some of our areas. We're attending chamber events, so people are getting to know us, and it's just not this random fiber company that's trying to sell us something. It's someone that is invested in our community. And so that's where I would stand on it.
Excellent. Thank you, Britlin.
yeah, I was going to say that question, we could probably spend this entire session talking about brand strategy and creation and building trust. But I think you're 100% correct, Britlin. You know, it's first they have to know who you are. You have to get your brand in front of them some way, shape, or form. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to build trust, but allow them to build that trust by showing that you're there, you're credible, you can do what they need. But you could even go as far as to say, try not to position yourself as a hero, let your customer be the hero, let them find the solution for themselves. But they can't do that if your brand's not in front of them. So just make sure, I think, Britton, you said it earlier, is know where your targets are. So just make sure that you're present on the different platforms that they're looking for you.
And I would add to that messaging. What you say is really important. Don't stretch the truth. You know what your company is good at. Make sure that you are, really putting that out there, out front. I won't take a show of hands, but I pretty much feel pretty confident that, if I were to ask, what do you think is one of the best things about your company? 90% of the people in here would say it's service. And most people really do try to sell that. The thing is that service isn't something that you can sell to a new customer. It's great in testimonials, and it's what keeps that customer coming back. But if you can find another hook in order to get people to try your product and then show them the service that you have, that's really important. But companies sometimes kind of lose themselves and just feel like people will come to you because of service. They will if you were referred to them. But it's not necessarily the best way to try to gain the trust and to get new people on board.
One last, sorry. Because both of you hit on it as well. I believe that when it came to a lot of residential, people really wanted to go out there and tell their story. But I think we're in that spot now for B2B companies. We still have to story tell. We need to tell the story of our company and why we're there to help them and what we can do for them. That's all I wanted to add.
Very well put. Man, I'm glad I got you guys on this panel. Well, we've talked about a lot of hurdles that I don't think are unique to telecom. I mean, building trust, that's going to be with any brand, right? So can you tell us about some hurdles that are going to be unique to the telecom space that your organizations have tackled in the process of? I mean, we talked about, I think, a little bit this morning. Many organizations in here share similar hurdles that we need to get over. And part of the reason we get together once a year for this is to collaborate and figure out what's working and what's not. Seth, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can jump in there. I think, Britton, you actually kind of kicked it off about a minute ago when you said service. 90% of people in this room will say service, that's our differentiation. I bet the other 90%, which I know it's 180 guys, but reliability. Who says reliability is their number one, right? Who says speed? We got speed. Okay, well, those three things that everyone is marketing in this room right now, that's a tough uniqueness, right? We are in an industry where everybody is marketing to the same customers, everybody is pushing the same message, and everybody's dollar is making everybody else's dollar smaller. It's making it harder. We are all competing. The other uniqueness, and I actually came from a different industry about 3 years ago, so it was unique to me coming in, but we are all competitors. Our customers are our competitors, and sometimes our partners and our owners are our competitors, right? And it's each one of those dollars that are pushing our ad spend up, 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 and getting us less and less market share, right? So, and I know that that's not 100% unique to our industry, but one thing that is kind of unique is we could successfully do a marketing campaign, get our brand out there, find a new customer. We sell them a great service, great, let's just say 10 gig, 100 gig service. Well, now we just create another competitor in our area because they're going to try and sell to our customers. It's very, very interesting industry. I think that what comes out of that, in my mind, it really goes to, you kind of talked about the brand and building that trust, but to me, it makes it more important for us to be unique in our own marketing campaigns, and how are we going to get to those customers in a unique fashion so that we stand out to them, right? And how do we do that to start building just a little bit of trust, right? Some people will do silly things, right, to try and to build that immediate brand trust with somebody. Other people will try gifts. We actually had a unique thing. Our CEO was actually in a meeting with me talking about, we should just take people out for coffee. And then it was, let's package our own coffee. Okay, let's work with a local coffee roaster and let's send people coffee and let's give them a French press if they sit down and meet with us. So we sent a coffee party in a box is what we did. We took a box, we put custom branded coffee in it. We took a list of our top 100, and I'm spilling all of our shared secrets here, guys, so I see no one's taking notes. That's a good thing. But we took our top 100 customers in our territories, we sent them out, and we waited, and we called, and we followed up. And I will say we're getting into it now. This is relatively new, but we just had our sales rep had a meeting with a customer that has 15 plus locations in our market that we did not talk to previously, and we're quoting out 8 of those locations today. When you look at the dollar ROI spent on that campaign, that's huge. But then also, let's say the other 99, even if they didn't respond, they all saw our brand. They saw a little box in the mail. They saw some unique coffee box, and hopefully it's going to stay on their desk. And hopefully when our sales team calls them, they're going to remember us, right? And hopefully our social ad campaigns will be out there talking about the unique messages as well. So, I kind of, sorry, I'm going off on tangent. To wrap this up, the uniqueness is I think we have to be unique, right? Because we do have challenges, and so we have to figure out ways to get around that.
Excellent. Britton, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I guess the thing that I would add, again, kind of drawing back on the experience from my last, from working with a number of industries over the years. Every industry thinks that they are unique, and you are, but you're not. And part of that is that everybody is marketing to people. And it's not so much what you're selling, but who you're selling to. And in general, people react, in like ways. So as you're putting those messages together, whether you're picking, you want to do email, or whether you want to do a social campaign, or you want to do something, really, out of the box and maybe a little more expensive to a target audience. Think about who that person is, who is getting that message, and who do you know that is like that? You might be your target audience. A lot of times you're not. But you know somebody that is in that group. So think of about 3 to 5 people that would be receptive, and is it something they would be receptive to? Because as marketers and dealing with people in marketing departments, a lot of times, especially, no offense to the CEOs sitting out there, they really love their ideas, and they are very committed to their ideas, and they're looking for someone to implement it. But a really good marketer, regardless, will also save them from themselves, help them to see, it's not them that they're marketing, to. They already believe in their product, but helping them to understand who it is that's actually going to be getting that message, and making sure that you're putting the very best thing out there for them, and not just rubber stamping stuff. You have to be able to kind of stand up on that.
Sorry, Mel, that means I'm probably going to ask you more questions when you come up with projects. Hope that's cool. Britt-Lynn, did you have anything to add to that?
I think I'm just going to kind of say exactly what they said. Targeting the right audience, making sure you're actually getting your message to the correct audience. I know prior to me coming to Independence Fiber Network, we didn't truly have a true marketing department. So when we were entering some of these enterprise spaces, it was just money kind of thrown everywhere, mass marketing, trying to get it out there. And it really wasn't that targeted initiative that we're looking to do now. So we don't think we were hitting the right people, the people in IT that we wanted to talk to, some of those CTOs, CIOs that we want to talk to. And it was kind of just, we were getting more residential calls than anything, because it was just kind of mass marketed everywhere. So that was one of the biggest hurdles we probably dealt with. And then when I came in, that's when we started to try to be a little bit more strategic on how we were putting our campaigns out there.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love it. No, we're working through that on our end as well. As our brand awareness is continuing to increase, we're seeing more and more residential requests, which we can't serve, but we're happy to pipe down to whichever member is appropriate for the state that request is for. Now, we've talked about quite a few different things today, but hurdles, what works, what doesn't work, different platforms. We've talked about Hootsuite, HubSpot. What about Sprout Social?
I'm sorry, what?
Sprout Social?
I'm familiar, but I haven't used it.
Yeah, same here.
Okay.
Nope.
Well, I guess I'm the lone wolf on that one. Well, we've covered quite a bit today. I guess last.
Can I have one more thing?
Absolutely.
Something, I mean, we talked about ROI, but the other thing I think that's important is to really look at your budget. From a budget standpoint, it kind of, when you triggered about, we just sort of threw stuff out there and kind of see what spaghetti was going to stick to the wall. You can spend money and do a lot of things, but one, to be smart with your money, really have some goals for it. Don't try to do too much. You said this at the beginning. I'm a strong proponent, if you're going into social, don't try to be on every single social platform. They all have their own little nuances. Figure out which one is best for you, own it, and do a tremendous amount with it. Don't dilute by trying to be too much in too many places. Also because your budget can't handle it. I would tell clients for years, you can have a handful of sand, it doesn't make it a beach. Whatever your budget is, figure out what you can do the most and the best with that budget, as opposed to trying to spread it out and try to make it go too far. On more than one occasion, over my career, there are people that have come to me that, had hundreds of thousands of dollars, but their expectations of what that money could do was unrealistic. And my advice was to them, was to save up another year and try to put 2 years' worth, especially if you're introducing a new project. You've got maintenance plans where you're just trying to keep your name out there and stay top of mind. But if it's a new product, it's a new service, you're going to have to invest more in that. And if you have a very finite budget, something is going to have to give. So what is it that you're going to give up in order to try to promote that new product or service? Because you won't be able to do everything well if you try to do everything.
It's like you read my mind. Raise your hand in here if you're looking to get into a new product, new region, new sales channel. Yeah, so don't be shy. I know several of you are. Excellent. What advice do you have for that?
Set clear goals. I really would.
Set
Put a
goals.
budget to it, set your goal. I would also,
Set your outcomes.
yeah, get your outcomes, figure out what you're going to track from your KPIs. But I think you need to, when you do that, set a schedule. I don't know if it was Britlin or Britton, sorry, who said, set your schedule, but know what you're going to post. I mean, and when you're putting together a campaign is not just an idea. It's not, oh, I want to promote this product on Google, and that's the campaign. That's not. I mean, you really need to look at the amount of budget you're going to put into it, the amount of time you're going to put into it, and then from the content perspective is what are you allocating from a content, and how many posts is that, and on what channels, right? It's very easy to just say, we have an idea, let's run with it, but it's another thing to set it out and say, hey, we're going to run it for 3 months, and we know we're going to have this many posts, and this is what we're looking for from a KPI perspective, and this is what we're looking for from an ROI perspective. And then
have a
when you're
cadence.
done, make sure you have your cadence.
Make sure you have
and-
your cadence in place.
Yep. And you can do all that manually, or you can use a Sprout Social or, whatever product you want. But I would definitely say create the entire plan and run the entire plan. And that's not saying you can't see success and spur off. That's fine, right? If you're seeing early successes, spur off and continue with a secondary campaign, but finish that campaign, so you can track that data and get the analytics from it.
And also be wary, as you have your plan and you announce it, everybody has opinions and they're going to want to, try to change that plan along the way. Yeah, it needs to have some flexibility, be open to that. But at the same time, I usually use the kind of comparing it to everybody's grandmother has a chocolate cake recipe that is uniquely theirs. And if you stick with one recipe and you let it, you buy the ingredients, you come in, you prep it, you get it in the oven, you let it cook the exact amount of time, chances are that cake's going to be pretty good. But, if you have several people who all have a grandmother with a favorite chocolate cake recipe and everybody starts trying to add a little bit of special ingredients and starting to tinker with it, then you will wind up with a campaign that is pretty flat and pretty tasteless.
I like that analogy a lot. Growing up, my mother swore she had the best one. Found out from my grandmother, who she said she got the recipe from, it was Duncan Hines box mix.
Nice.
You've got to add some special flavor to it to make it unique, right?
Yeah.
I love it. Britlin, anything to add?
I covered it.
Okay, excellent. Well, my last question, and again, I apologize, this didn't come up in our pre-planning conversations, but we're already talking about new channels, new regions, new products, all that good stuff. Usually leadership wants to know why we're diving into something new, right? They want to see that the business need is there to start moving that direction. What tools and reports do you look at to make the decision to start diving into a new channel or something like that?
Anybody want to jump in? No? I can, so I mean, there's, from a web perspective, you can definitely see demand. You can go to Google Trends That is a very, very simple, I mean, it's just Google, go to Google Trends and you can start typing in keywords and you can find demographics on those keywords and it'll actually show you what are other likable keywords that are showing in those search queries. So that's a very simple one. SEMrush is another. They have a pretty simple free version, but if you want to pay a small monthly fee, you can actually get competitor data within SEMrush, so you can plug in a website and you can see what keywords are they ranking for and what paid ads are they running and the different keyword types they're going after. What is it, SpyFu? That's another digital one, kind of similar, that you can find those keywords. But the other thing I would do is utilize your sales team and make sure that they're I don't know, just make sure you're getting the real information from the customers, but just ask customers, hey, what are you guys looking for? What are, you have this with us today. If you didn't have this product with us today, well, what are you looking at? Is it, you have an Ethernet connection, but now you want SD-WAN, right? Why is that? And start getting real customer feedback. I think that definitely helps, but there are some digital tools out there that can help you at least jumpstart that.
Yeah, I think, for the most part, that's still, roll your sleeves up and dig into the data. Just be very careful, everything out there isn't, everything on the internet isn't true. And it's very easy to verify something that you want to prove. So you need to kind of make sure that not only are you trying to prove what it is that you want to accomplish or what you want to be out there, but also intentionally look for data that sort of disproves other data, and then dig into their sources. Where are they getting that? A lot of times when you start digging into the research, you'll find 3 sources that you think have nothing to do with one another that support a particular trend. That may not be the case. They may have all actually come from one single source if you dig into it. So, making sure that you have multiple points of research before you, go headfirst into something is really important.
That's a very good point. I know I'm guilty of it on occasion. I find 2 or 3 supporting items for what I'm building a case for. It's pretty easy to say, oh, okay, that's definitely true.
Yeah.
No, that's very true. Britlin?
Yeah, I think they took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to say research. So just make sure you're researching, just like Britton just said. I mean, you really need to deep dive into that research to know, is it actually just one person saying it, or is this actually a true fact?
Very, very well put. Well, with that, before we dive into Q&A, any final thoughts? Advice? Anybody? How about this? People entering, new marketers entering our industry. Words of advice to get started.
The tools are there to help you succeed. And so, there's there's paid tools, but there's a lot of free tools out there that you can utilize. So that's one of the biggest things I would just advise. Find those free tools to be able to help you.
And don't think you have to do it all by yourself, I think is the other thing. You kind of said, you have specialists, third-party specialists that you can find out there. But we are in the age of AI as well. Utilize AI. If you're not a great content writer, that's a good start. Then you can use other AI bots that'll read through that content and sure it up and put in a special voice just for you. Add your keywords, and there you go. You have a start to a campaign. So leverage the tools, kind of as Britlin was saying, leverage the tools that are out there and definitely do research, because there are new marketing platforms coming from everywhere.
100% agree. On top of that, besides using tools and resources, this room is an abundance of resources. I've been with Indatel 3 years, and everyone in this room, I think, has put up with my interesting questions in that short time period. Just learning everything I can about the industry, learning what's working, what's not, and all 3 of you have given me wonderful advice in that time. I greatly appreciate it. With that, this clicker doesn't, anybody up here, this clicker doesn't like to work right behind the podium. Make sure you pick it up. With that, I want to open it up for some Q&A. Any questions? I think we have a microphone around here somewhere.
Nice job, you guys. So one of the things that we're noticing in North Dakota when it comes to marketing, and Seth, you touched on it with, we don't ever want to compete with our owners, but sometimes we find ourselves in that situation. And we talk speed and reliability and service. Our owners and their product and the scale of their networks, of their best effort internet, is really now becoming probably our biggest competitor. How have you guys approached marketing and communications that you're sending out to your customers to address maybe that migration to SD-WAN and best effort internet rather than a dedicated connection through your company?
I don't, from the Optic perspective, and we're similar to the North Dakota, utilizing a lot of last mile in those areas. From a marketing perspective, it's very difficult because we don't ever want to go in and overbuild an incumbent. That's not our goal. But we do want to make sure that our customers and even their customers just are aware of our assets and what we have in their territories. And just as it's not a one-size-fits-all, I guess is the way I would say it from a marketing perspective. So make sure that they understand the different types of services that you can provide. Leverage, those customer testimonials. We have a big push right now to where we're trying to get customer testimonials speaking specifically about different products and just keeping that in front of those territories, right? And then, again, it goes back to the comment that I made, and it's not unique to me. It's called StoryBrand. It's a book out there, but don't position yourself as a hero, right? What you want to do is you want to enable your customer to be the hero in their own story, to find what it is that fits their need the best. And as long as your message is in front of them saying, hey, we can help you here, but if the speed just isn't there or the reliability just isn't there, hey, there's another product over here that we do really well. And here's some customers that will speak to that, right? And so I don't think it's about jamming one message down their throat, right? Come to us, we're the best. But here's the options, right? And just know that we're reliable for any option that you choose.
And unique.
Yeah, but that's my thought on that. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions.
So all I'm going to say, along with what Seth said, if you have not read that book, StoryBrand, it's changing the marketing industry. It's doing that storytelling, and I think if you are a marketer in the room or even touch marketing, it's a book that you need to be reading. That was all I have to say.
Anything to add?
We need like a
Anything to add?
affiliate code, right?
Yeah.
Go to this URL so I can pay for that.
I like it. Digital marketing, right?
Yeah.
No, great question. Any others? Well, we got Karen right there. Mike's coming, I promise.
There we go. Whew. So you mentioned using Buffer and I think Hootsuite. What was the other one?
Hootsuite.
Oh, Hootsuite.
They're creative with the names, right?
I guess clearly I'm not in marketing, but I did have a question about the number of messages that come out in LinkedIn through those. I mean, what do you think is the optimal number of messages? I think historically, it seems that there's messages that around, Inditel and ITW and all that kind of encompass and things like that. But what do you think is the optimal number of messages from, oh, don't be bored with us, or, hey, haven't heard from you in a while. So anyway, just interested.
No,
All right.
messages or posts that are more public facing. Posts? Okay.
Yeah, so I think sometimes that gets a little difficult when it comes to the algorithm of these different social platforms, just like LinkedIn, because you don't want to post too much to where you're hiding your other content. And you guys could correct me on this, I would say it's probably about 2 to 3 times a week that you want to be posting and being up to date. But they do let people know if you're posting one thing in the morning today and one thing at night, well, if you really wanted people to see that thing in the morning, it's probably going to get pushed out of the way, and you're only going to see that thing you posted tonight. So I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts
Yeah,
on that.
I would agree, 100%. As a B2B, you want to probably do, a couple a week. I would not recommend businesses in this industry trying to do something every single day. It just kind of gets lost in the noise, and then when something's important that you really want them to see, they just kind of gloss over it. If it's a business to consumer type product, it's a little bit different. So somebody that's in residential, they may want to post a little more frequently. Again, and the timing of it also. As a business to business, you don't necessarily want to be posting stuff at 11 or 12 o'clock at night. It probably isn't going to stay in the news feed by the next morning. Posting things a little early. Also, people have other things they're getting done in the morning. With business to business, it's not a bad thing to actually post a little bit earlier. People sometimes will get up and they'll go through those social feeds. Business to consumer, you definitely want to be posting. People jump on Facebook first thing in the morning. So a lot of times they'll do that before they even have their feet hit the floor. It's all about timing. But as far as number of posts, business to business, probably about 2. But I really wouldn't recommend more than 3 a week unless you've got some kind of big push or, a convention that you're at and you're doing something over the weekend that's really worth kind of that social, tip of the hat.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add to that is just, it also depends on the type of content that you're asking them to digest, right? And one form of being able to get more exposure and keep a brand in front of them on social is to, for instance, you could write one blog article that's 2,500 words long, right? No consumers are going to click that, open it up and say, I want to read this right now, right? But from multiple levels of marketing, that's a good thing, right? Because now we got 2,500 words. We're putting we're hopefully linking it to our webpage. We're getting SEO content. The Google bots like it, right? Mm-hmm. Well, then you take that and you create micro posts from it. So if you're just saying, hey, did you know this? And it's not even a linked, it's not something that someone's going to go to and read. It's just the image post with caption on it, and you hashtag the keyword or something like that. Utilizing micro posts like that can actually help keep that brand awareness and without it being too much in their face, right? If you sell, then they're going to just unfollow because I don't want to watch this anymore. But if it's actually something that hey, did you know this, right? Or a topic of the day, or even a snippet from the blog post, like you take one paragraph of it and then you might make a micro post from that, and then you link it back to your major blog. Say if you want to read the rest, you can. Those are all different variations. But to their point, 2 to 3 a week probably, unless you're going to do something like that. You could do 5 a week if it's not overwhelming, right? If it's not a sell.
The other thing really important, 3 words: share, share, share. Indatel's putting things out there. You don't have to come up with new content. Share the content that they have already put out there. If you've got members or partners that are posting original content, share it. Encourage your your staff to share it. If you're putting something out there, then also you can't do this through Buffer. I don't know if you can do it through Hootsuite. But when we post individually, I can also alert everybody that is a member of the company through LinkedIn to let them know that post has been made. So it will send them an alert. I'm not doing that. I mean, it's one little checkbox, but it's also encouraging people to share that, because the more impressions it gets, and then they continue to share it, it will stay in that news feed. So it's just a way to kind of play that formula to your advantage. But as we've both said, you do want to plan your social content, but something that Buffer and Hootsuite can't do is that they don't have the ability to go out there and share, because you don't really kind of know who's going to be posting what on somebody else's platform. So make sure that there are people in your company that are keeping an eye on your other partners and being able to put that and keep that information out there.
No, that's spot on. I mean, we could go on for, I think, at least another hour about employee advocacy and marketing efforts and all that good stuff. This is a good business case, I think, for some breakout sessions next year. But no, you guys are all spot on, and I wholeheartedly agree. At Enditel, we try to do no more than twice a week. Obviously, industry events are kind of a special exception on that front. There's a huge difference between shoving product down somebody's throat online and just sell, sell, sell versus staying relevant with meaningful content that doesn't become spam and fall on deaf, I would say ears, but deaf eyes. No, wholeheartedly agree. Great question. Yeah, but Ivan, go ahead. Or, yeah.
I'll share.
So kind of an extension of everything you guys have been talking about, I've noticed a trend with the company I worked for before where they had the social media calendar and they encouraged the salespeople and other key people in the organization to go on and post those same things. I see a lot of different companies doing that. Is there a way to prevent that from becoming that noise that you scroll through when you see the exact same post that looked original the first time you saw it, but then it's duplicated 15 times by the 15 people that you're friends with on LinkedIn that work for the same company? Or is it just all about the impressions and the interactions? Is that the main goal, or is there a balance there, I guess?
I'm going to say that I would not recommend, multiple people doing the same post as if it's original, because it does feel disingenuous and, I just would not recommend that. That's the reason I kind of go back to the whole, share thing. You actually get more impressions, and even, of course, I know I look at things a little bit differently, but, as I look at a post and I go, oh, well, wait a minute, this has been shared 15 times. It must be something that people are really interested in, as opposed to kind of reading it for the first time and then going through and seeing, Betty did it, Bob did it, and so on, and then you're like, yeah, this is the same picture over and over. It just, I think it and that's, again, I go back to, kind of grandma's, chocolate cake. Whatever recipe, if that's working for your company, then don't stop it just because, it's not the way I would cook it. But, you've got to figure out what works for you, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes along the way, and that's fine. That's kind of what marketing is about. It's about finding that right recipe that works for you.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I was going to say and it goes back to the content. If it was like a post of saying, hey, I'm going to be attending ITW, as a company, I think that uniquely posting that on each is probably, that would be fine. But the sharing of it, there's a couple things with the algorithm too you want to think about, is because the more shares, even though it's the exact same content, and some people are just hitting the share button, that's it, and some people are adding some content at the top, right? But if that gets immediate traction, it's a robot. It doesn't know. It really isn't saying, well, this person's always liking this and always sharing this, right? But it's just saying, hey, this post, for whatever reason, just got 250 people to like it, share it, and post it. Then it's going to naturally start sharing that on people's feeds that don't know you, that you have never met before, you've probably never communicated with, right? And so by just having that push, it is a good thing. I do understand it's still noise at the end of the day. It's the same thing. Well, I just saw 5 people just share that same thing, right? But I think you just scroll faster because you see it. But from an algorithm perspective, it's a really good thing. And that's, I don't know if anybody does, they'll look at a post that they posted 3 weeks ago, and all of a sudden a random comment just happened. And you're like, I posted that 3 weeks ago. Like, what is this person doing not following my stuff right now? But that's just how it works. It stays out there, right? And it'll just keep going through the ecosystem.
Well, the algorithms also, speaking to that, the algorithms also, if you have a post that gets a lot of traction, because they are robots and they're looking at formulas, they also have a tendency to start sharing other things that may not, because they're like, oh, this company has got things that people are interested in. So they're going to put those in news feeds thinking it will potentially get the same amount of traction as well. So that's another reason.
Wonderful. Great question. I promise I didn't plant that with an Enditel employee, guys. Ivan, did you have one?
Yeah, so personally for me, from a LinkedIn perspective and networking, right? How do you present your value. So for me, I don't always read the post, but I read who's sharing the post. And so if I don't know that person, probably not a very likely chance I'm going to read it, because we can all be inundated with posts, right? But if I know that person, they're in my network, and I say, hey, they're posting it, it must have real value, right? So that's how I determine whether I'm going to read a post or not. And like it or not, if you have a good network and people that you, if you will, admire, and they post something, then you want to say, why is he or she posting this? I'm interested. So it's all, to me, that's really what drives my interest, is who's posting. So that's important to me.
Great perspective. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah, I would.
Beautiful. Well, this is a first. We're about out of time for this part of our sales summit. Any more questions? Okay. Well, a quick round of applause for these amazing panelists. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, next up, we actually talked about it a little bit, touched on kind of the race to zero with how our pricing models, right? Well, next up, I have Bob Kittner from LB Networks to talk to us about stopping that exact race to zero, a new sales journey.
All right, thank you, everybody. And Seth, I did take a lot of notes. You said nobody was taking notes. So Bob Kittner, LB Networks. I think I know about 3/4 of the folks in the room. Looking forward to meeting the rest of you. Most of you know us through our product, Ocular IP, that about everybody in the room is using for compliance reporting for wholesale. But what I want to talk to you about today really has to do with our customer journey and everything that Seth, Britton, and Britlin were talking about, and really everything they're doing, those 7 to 13 touches to get a new customer. And if I could get your attention, there is a massive transformation in communication in the customer journey happening in our industry. And one of the notes I took here is Britton had said, hey, we're not unique, but we are unique. So some of that is happening across every industry. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about here, we use the phrase, stop the race to zero. A lot of the executives that we've talked to within the Inditel membership talk to us about how are we unique. Our fiber-based services, we're getting pressured to build bigger and sell for less revenue. So the margin getting squeezed there is very, very real. And so it was Seth actually wrote in here, hey, reliability, how are we unique? Is your fiber buried further? Are you buying from Corning versus somebody else? If you're in the same locations, how are you unique? And there's a lot going on in that. So trust, service, how are you conveying that to the customer? And I take it even further because it involves a lot of the partners that are here today. So you heard earlier from IO Light, you talked a little bit about TransUnion, you talked about ConnectBase. We at LB Networks with Ocular IP, the 4 of us are involved in your entire customer journey. So you think about it. How do I find out where there is service? It might go into your CRM with Salesforce. You need to provision it, which TransUnion can help you with. And then you need to know what's happening with that circuit and how are you sharing it with the customer. But I'm going to step back and go to just some general information. And we posted this. The group in here was talking about posts, and I can reshare this. But there's a lot of stuff that Channel Vision did on what's going on within sales organizations in our space. How do you stand out? What's unique? What's aligned with marketing? But number 3 and 4, connecting with prospects, keeping them engaged. So massive things that involve this transformation that I'm talking about. And I really want this to hit home for you because it is going to be a major impact to your ability to gain new customers in the enterprise space as well as wholesale, but mainly the enterprise space, and to hold on to those customers. So if you lost 10% of your revenue, that's pretty significant. What if you gained 10% from somebody else that's losing that 10%? So aside from what we're doing to have those 7 to 13 touches to reach a customer, just to get down and have, as Seth said, have a coffee with somebody. But then again, how's your bandwidth, how's your network different from somebody else? So the customer journey is massively changing though, because customer expectations in every industry are changing. How do they interact with you? When they come to your website, what can they do? Is there a lit building list? Do they have to talk to somebody to get a quote? Okay, so there's a lot of things going on in self-service. Everybody in here, how much do you love calling up and waiting on hold for anything you're buying in any industry? If you can self-serve what you need and get that answer right away, it's a massive difference. So differentiation, but I'm going to talk about a few other industries because as Britton was saying, telecom is not unique. So in the food industry years ago, during the pandemic, there were big time restaurants. Hit home for me because my father-in-law owns some restaurants. He's like, I don't do DoorDash and Uber Eats. I have a nice restaurant, seafood, steaks, what have you. The experience isn't the same. He lost massive market share to the neighboring seafood steakhouses that started doing Uber Eats because we were all at home. And he tells me, I never got that market share back. They experienced my competition. Maybe they buy from both. Maybe they never buy from me again. But the experience in the food industry changed. You no longer call on the phone to order pizza anymore. You grab your app, you order it, it shows up. The restaurants that were late adopters to that lost business. Same thing in the service industry, but even in the auto industry. Car dealers are dealing with Vroom and Carvana. You can order a car to your house. You can trade in a car online. What's the experience? How are they responding? So right now, every service provider in the world is changing their website and the way your customer can interact with them. So all the marketing this group was talking about in that customer journey, how are your customers able to interact with you? And is it going to cost you revenue? Are you going to protect? You've built optical circuits into buildings. Are you monetizing that? Are you growing it? Or is somebody coming to take it away from you? That's very real today. So that's kind of what we want to walk through right now. So when we talk about how do you build service and trust, I will leave you with this major point. In any relationship, if I hide information from you, are you going to trust me? Plain and simple. And I've said this at other shows. I've used it in my own personal relationships, especially with family. If I hide information, the other party inherently will blame you. It's just the way it is. And in our industry, we talk about building trust. How are we handling self-service with a customer? Can they go to your website and get a quote? Can they pay a bill online? Do you let them know in advance if there's maintenance? Are you proactively, instead of just having coffee, sharing with them how their network is growing so they can buy from you? If the only time a customer hears from your organization is when there's an outage or when they need to renew the contract, have you built trust? How are you differentiating yourself? So that's really what I want to talk about today. So in telecom, and this Janet Group here is one of the biggest consulting groups in our industry. They do tons and tons of research. You guys can look this up. They've been quoted in the Wall Street Journal. But they talk about what's transformative in our industry is what makes us unique. So I'm looking in my notes here. Seth said reliability and speed. How are we unique? The competition is squeezing margins. His words. Flows right into what I want to talk to you guys about. So Britton said, how do I build trust? I advertise that I have trust. Once they buy from you, what is that experience going forward? You know, everything we talked about at the last major industry show in Miami, I think, Ben, you may have talked about it last time when you were here. Massive capital going into extending your fiber footprint, buying more network equipment, extending into buildings. Valuations of cell tower backhaul are really at their highest. But now fiber to a building is almost as valuable because once you have that customer, now they understand what your network's capable of. But you got competition coming in and building fiber to the home, and they're going to come into those business parks, and they are going to compete with you. And if they can build trust by showing and having a better customer experience through self-service, they can take that customer from you. So what I want to talk about here is trust and premium customer care are huge in every industry. So I threw some examples up here. In the airline industry, we all wait in line TSA. Some of us have signed up for TSA PreCheck. If you're impatient like me, you've paid for Clear at most airports and you go through faster. I know I'm paying more, but it's premium customer service. If I want the DoorDash I ordered here at the hotel last night to get here faster, I can pay $3 extra and have them come straight here. Premium customer care. Okay. So what does service, you guys spend all this money, you do a phenomenal job, and you do all this marketing for your unique asset, your network, and you need to start advertising where you can quote it on Ben's platform at ConnectBase, right? So then what does your service look like after the fact? In that website, when they want to get self-service and don't want to call your knock and open up a ticket, what is that experience? And can you hold on to that customer? So, it's everywhere. We talk about apps. Nobody likes ads in their apps. Can I pay extra to get rid of the ads? So in our industry, we absolutely can charge extra and increase those margins for added information. And what is that added information? I'll talk about that in a second. But the other thing is, how do you protect your asset? Those current customers that you've had for a long time. You want to get them on a renewal. So they're month to month. You want that 3-year extension or that 2-year contract extension. Sharing information proactively with that customer, showing them how they need to scale their bandwidth. Information to your sales team to say, call these 50 customers that are at 80% utilization. They need more bandwidth. And you're building trust with them because you're not waiting till the contract's up to talk to them. Can your network, you have the information, is your marketing team sharing that information with your sales team that's allowing you to go have those conversations with the customer? Is it automated? Do they get a monthly or quarterly report from you that shows how great the network is? They should be. You have that capability today. And the thing is, the big players in our industry are already doing this. So, one of the things we've talked about is our business service portal. We spent a lot of time talking to different research organizations about what we should do next. And the big transformative change is customers expect to know what they bought and they want self-service. They want to be able to buy more bandwidth and know how the network's working without having to call you. If you're not sharing information with them, you're hiding information. So from that standpoint, we know and we believe, and we've already seen the early innovators have a portal that allows quoting, billing, ticketing, anything you can think of, all integrated. And then the innovators will soon follow. So you have about 12 to 18 months where you are unique if you're sharing information with your customer. How is the network up or down? Is it in maintenance? Can I send you information in advance? Within 2 to 3 years, it will be table stakes in our industry to a business customer. If your business website doesn't allow them to see what they bought from you, why would they trust you? You're hiding information from them. Why would they trust you? So plain and simple, if you're not getting there now, your competition who's overbuilding you is going to be doing this. Many of them already are. So we're just one avenue, because most of you have our platform already, and we can talk to you at the break about the business service portal that allows you to privately brand and choose what information you want to share. But the other thing is, I need to go back here. One of our customers that rolled this out early, the big differentiator for them on a 500-site network was sharing information with the customer. And when I talked to you earlier about premium customer care, what I mean by that is they're able to self-configure with their brand that if this is the circuit up or down and just general utilization. Here you go, Mr. Customer, you can see what you bought from us. But do you want a full quarter's worth of data? Do you want a geo map showing where all your circuits are that you bought from us? Do you want to be able to have some interactive graphs so you can see your primary and secondary circuits coming into, say, your hospital network? Oh, by the way, that's an extra $20 a month if you want premium customer care, like us buying Clear at the airport, right? So, very real scenario, this carrier said, we showed it to the customer. The buyer in the RFP, 552 sites, optical circuits, real revenue, $1 million plus contract, right? They bought from this customer and as an a la carte selected the extra $20 a month for the full quarter's worth of data. All of a sudden the margin went up on every circuit and it won them the account. Our group got a phone call that said, we're putting this out. Where's the marketing information for our sales team on this? It ties into the messaging. The 7 to 13 touches it takes for you to get a customer, are you advertising that that customer can trust you? Here's the proof. You can log into our portal and we'll show you, hey, our sales rep's going to call you once a quarter. Actually, no, you're going to get this nice PDF that shows how your services are performing. You need to plan to buy more from us. So what I'm telling you right now is we know as a company, either we're going to help you get there or you're going to have your big competition who've spent millions on what their communication is with their customer and what that looks like. And we didn't invent this. I mean, one of our earliest customers that did this is over in the UK, and they started their website allowed to get a quote online, lit building list, buy services, provision it, see how it's performing, even click if you want more bandwidth, all automated. And they use us for this service assurance piece. So naturally we took that and said, okay, is this where the industry's headed? So we don't want you, our friends in the industry, to be that restaurant that just ignored Uber Eats and DoorDash and lost market share. So your customers expect self-service, just like the car dealership where you used to have to call service to take your car in. Now you go to their website and schedule 11 a.m. Thursday, I need an oil change, need tires rotated, whatever, boom, done, drop my keys, don't talk to anybody. Dealership down the road that doesn't do that, nobody wants to buy from them now. So the customer experience, when I said at the beginning of this, you're in the middle of a massive transformation. And what Britton said, hey, we're unique, but we're not unique. We're all unique that we understand telecom. But everybody in the world wants everything on demand the way they want it without having to talk to anybody. And they want to be able to trust you. And if you don't get on board with that, you're the one that's going to be sitting here, the late adopter that's lost market share to the overbuilder that came in and offered all of your business customers, here's what you get when you buy from us. So that's very real. And you know, the good news is it's still early. We are having carriers every day turn up our business services portal. You could probably ask CNI, our hosts, about it because we just went live, you know, helping them with it as well. And many of you in the room have said, yeah, Bob, we've already talked to you about this. We're having that conversation. You know, so that's really what I wanted to share today in terms of our research that helped us build, you know, the new application that adds on to Ocular IP that most of you already use.